Did you? I'm sure he's a big Talmud Chacham, but I cannot put on somebody who I don't know personally, if you don't mind, as the Chayna Tzibur. I'm sure if he's on Torah any time, he must have been vetted. So before we get going, or Pesach, do you in fact have a video? Did you mention you actually have a video of Sephardi matzahs being made? Is that correct? Could you please talk to me and let me know if that's accurate before you put it on? Before you put it on, okay, freeze it. I want to say something to the Ilim for bring it on. Okay, maybe I'm preparing to shove the gold Russia, but I want to tell you something that I heard just about half hour ago, 40 minutes ago, whatever. I was in the car trying to listen to the weather, whatever, and I was on WCBS, and the 60 Minutes program comes on. Basically, take this off for a second because I just want to say something. It'll take me literally a minute, then we'll put it back on. So normally, I didn't turn it off, even though the veracity level, as far as I'm concerned, of 60 Minutes is not particularly high. Certainly anything to do with Yiddishkeit and Jews and Israel or anything like that. So in general, I don't trust anything they said. But they said two things which struck me like a slap across my face. Mamash, a slap across my face. They were describing a refugee center of Lviv. As I have already mentioned to you, Lviv, aka Lemberg, an important city in Jewish history, in the mid 1800s till the war. It had Chashav Rabbana. Mishus Yaakov was the Rav in Lemberg, and Lemberg was an important commercial center for, I guess it's Eastern Galicia. My family came from a place not so far from Lemberg, a place called Drubich, which is 20, 30 kilometers out of there. I know before we ended up in Munkach. Anyway, hold on for a second, Reb Daniel. I want to tell you one thing which struck me, and I'm sorry to do this to you because, take off the chat, please, because I can't help being a child of Holocaust survivors. So describing the scene in a refugee center in Lviv. To me, Lviv is Lemberg, and nothing will ever change that. And they described, first of all, as Adama, they said the amount of people in the Ukraine who have either been killed by the Russians, injured, or displaced as refugees. And the number they threw out was, of course, nobody can know this 100%. The number they said was 6 million. Perish is 60 minutes. Not 5.5, not 6.2, not anything other number than 6 million. If Rabbi Snyder had thrown his hands up, because how could that number be so high? That's not where I'm going with that, as I'm sure you figured out. 6 million. That was number one. Number two, they went down. I was on the radio, so I couldn't see anything HPesach. But they went down to this refugee center in Lviv, Lemberg, where there's 800,000 or something like that, some crazy number of refugees. This population of Lviv has basically doubled in the last month. And they described a refugee center. I couldn't see it. So these things, you're listening to 60 Minutes of radio, I'm sure some of you may have in the car at some point. That you really can't, it's not the same thing because they're talking and they expect you to look at the visualization. Anyway, but kids, there must have been some huge, I don't know what, warehouse or something, and listen to how they described what the conditions in this warehouse were. It says there are thousands of people crammed into a refugee center, a warehouse or something, and they're living on wooden pallets, 8 feet long by 3 feet wide for each person, with limited food, limited water, no medicine, and all they do is lie in these pallets all day. The only commodity they have in any abundance is time. And the first thing that came to my mind is that was an exact description of where my mother, Alea Shalom, spent 1 year and 4 months in Auschwitz, 3 months in Auschwitz. An exact description. A wooden pallet she slept every night She was in the labor camp adjacent to Auschwitz, making effective bombs for the German Air Force. She was 17 years old, 16 or 17 years old, which is why Mengele sent her to the right. Of course, her mother was burned to the crisp with the other members of her family, and she survived from June of not 14 months. I'm sorry, she survived less. She survived from May of 1944 till she was liberated a year later. On living on a wooden pallet. I don't know if it was 8 feet long or whatever. It doesn't make a difference. And this is the description that I heard. I'm about 5 million pay grades below telling you what, why Rabbi is doing things. I can only tell you what I heard in 60 minutes. You want, you can probably go on some website somewhere and get a recording of the 60 minutes. That's what was said of a fairish 60 minutes. They said other stuff there, but I was so, let's get the right word. I was so stunned by these two statements that I don't remember anything else they said. Let's learn Torah because these are our two nekamas against the Umas Olam. Comment number one is that we have the Torah and they don't, which they've never forgiven us for. Our Sinai Shiur Sitna Olam. The second thing is that Kodesh Baruch Hu takes his nekama against the Risham of the world, however he wants, whenever he wants. Doesn't tell us about it. Doesn't even invite us to the unfolding of it. He just unfolds it. And we are just bystanders. And if we have a little bit of seichel to see as neflais, ayeg v'roisav and neflaisav, and then we are ahead of the game. Okay, it's a little funny to go from this. I remember once it was, I think it was bar mitzvah, must be my son's bar mitzvah or something, and I got up and it was right after, I can't remember, I don't know. Anyway, I got up and I talked about my parents and, my mother, father was very much alive. And, I gave an Alfred speech. And then I had to move to a bar mitzvah. So everybody came up to me and said, how could you do that? How could you mix together two things? How could you mix together talking about that your mother survived Auschwitz, but at the same time, the simcha bar mitzvah? I said, that's what being a Jew is all about. I can't help it. That's what about Kodesh Baruch Hu programmed into our DNA when he plucked us out of Mitzrayim from the Kor HaBarzel, when he put into our everlasting till the end of time, he put into us that's what we would be. We would have moments of the lowest of the low, such as the Holocaust, the highest of the high, such as Matan Torah, I don't know, for our generation. The high is this incredible zigzag that we made from 70 years ago, basically surviving by the skin of our teeth. Now you walk into the Lakewood Bate Midrasha, and this is already after Chodesh Nisan. A friend of mine, one of the Rabban of the West Side, took his boys down today, the modern Orthodox boys, to see the Lakewood-based Midrash. I said, why are you going now? Why don't you go a couple weeks ago? It's already Chodesh Nisan. It's true. Now, one of Rav Aaron's great, inherent in all his millions of chutzim was the fact that he, for whatever reason, decided he's keeping Lakewood going until Zion Nisan. Maybe part of the real reason was when he started this in the 50s that the boys didn't have anywhere to go. A lot of them didn't have anything to eat. Where were they going? But that has persisted now for more than 70, I don't know how many years since Lakewood was founded, 60 years, more, 1944, right? So that's, you do the math. 1944, 1943, I don't remember which year it was. Anyway, it's a long time. And this extra week, is anybody good at math? Figure it out. like it was founded. Somebody look it up in the thing when or actually there's a little bit of lakes exactly when GMG was considered to be founded. White Plains, Lakewood, Air, whatever it is. If you do 22, it's more than 70 years. If you do, let's take 70 years. Right, take 70 years. 70 years more. It's like 75 years times a week. Take 10 hours a day. That's how long you're supposed to learn when you're in a bacher or even a young man in the yeshiva. So that's 10 hours a day, 78 years ago. Okay, thank you. So do the math. 78 years ago, a week, extra week, because every yeshiva, other yeshiva starts with Chodesh Nisan. I'm not talking about when they start faching up a bit, but I will tell you from from my own personal experience and observation that the yeshiva goes to Yugalite, especially the serious ones. Some of them are related to me. Go till Zion Nisan, they don't miss a beat. Which this year is a full extra week. So we get 10 hours. That's let's leave Friday out even. Okay, I'll be charitable. It's 50 hours more a week. 50 hours. 50 hours times I don't know how many thousands or whatever. Do the math. Hundreds of thousands of hours of Torah learning were added by this one simple idea. Okay. Anyway, let's go back to going from A to Z. So Pesach now you can put on, after we talked about 6 million and wooden pallets, you can put on a movie for the night. Let's see what a Sephardi matzah bakery looks like. Wheat is the same. 5 minutes, perfect.
When we mention matzah, we normally think of thin, brittle crackers. But many of you may not know that Sephardim have been making their own matzahs for generations, which are actually thick and pliable. Now, for any of you who haven't seen these being made, I took a trip to the Tzaddik Bakery in Hendon, northwest London, on the premises of Od Yosef Chai Yeshiva, to meet with Dayan Abraham David and his son Rabbi Yossi David and a few other people, including 2 of my sons, to see how these matzahs are being made. And here's what we saw. Okay, first of all, the table where the matzot are being made is cleaned very, very thoroughly. These are the sticks. Those sticks are the sticks used to transfer the matzot.
Ready? When he puts the matzah, wait until he's ready to take it. If you get too close to the oven...
Pesach, can you get rid of that gray square?
Water that's used for the to make the dough.
Okay, if it's similar, it's similar.
Just kneading the dough very ably, I might add. And the process is now being started.
Yeah, come. Just keep on working like that, yeah? Work on it like that.
There's the kneading, there's the rolling and making the holes. And here's the Dayan making those all essential holes. Once the matzah is being rolled and the holes are made, it's taken to the oven. The process here is done very, very quickly, within 18 minutes, as we know. In actuality, what I've seen is that most times it's done within about 12, 13 minutes. As you can see, the work is constantly being done. The Dayan is very adept at making those holes.
Come on.
I don't get it. Pesach. 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 Can you hear me?
Those are very big.
They make it in the same room as the oven.
אתה מוריד ואז מקפל?
שמולק,
Be very careful not to drop that much on the floor.
why so big?
I don't know. Shmulik, don't take this one.
העולם שכדי שם ציוונו להפריש חלב תרומה, הרי זו חלב.
Afrashat Challah by Rabbi Yossi David. Here the matzot are being put on the scales to be weighed. Each packet is 1 kilo. And there they are. Nice and thick.
יש טוב?
And they're put into bags over here. Here they are,
שעבדו בשבילי.
bagged up and labeled. And look at that. Pliable, soft, very easy to eat, nice and thick. Voila. Amazing, healthy, tasty, delicious, soft matzah. Chag kasher v'sameach.
Okay, so the chiddush to me, of course, that it's much thinner than we expected, right? I assume. Everybody, am I wrong about that? Hold on. Much thinner than I expected. And how, in fact, do they keep it softer? I'm assuming they keep it softer by simply not keeping it in the oven as long. Is that the pshat? Somebody explain what we just saw.
And the oven was in the same room they were making the matzah.
That's another issue, but let's put that aside.
It looks like
Because they didn't have a maril. They don't have a maril. You understand?
Visually, the intensity of the heat looks like it's much less. The little thing on top, and the other ovens were just massive amounts of fire and heat.
Well, maybe that's the pshat. The pshat is that it's not, in order to make it softer, you can't heat it as intensely and as much.
Oh.
Hey, look, as I said, first of all, the not being in the same room, remember, we have a totally different tradition. And our not being in the same room, if I remember correctly, is the Maril, Nitram Sadesh, and these are all Ashkenazi sources. So I don't know if we saw in the Rif or the Rambam that the oven can't be in the same room. Most of the oven baking procedures that we are familiar with, even though they're all cited around the Shulchan Aruch written by Sephardi, but they all come from our Ashkenazi sources. I don't know what they did in Sfarad. They didn't have matzah. Of course, they had matzahs. So they didn't have the same chumras. Maybe they didn't. But it seems to me that it's not that thick. It's not like the size of a pita that we thought, right? I was envisioning. I never actually seen the Sephardi matzah, which I assume puts me in the minority. I'm sure some of you have actually seen it until this thing. And I don't know if this is representative of all Sephardi matzahs. I don't know. I really should, this Pesach, I should get in my car and go to deal or knock on the door of somebody in Flatbush and ask them to see their matzah. But as you heard, what?
It was pretty thick.
Was it so much thicker than ours?
I think so. Certainly a lot thicker than mine.
I don't know. I mean, the Ashkenazi yes, somebody pointed out. Now we don't know if that's, as I said, I just was discussing that with Leibish. We don't know if that's all Sephardi matzahs are that the thickness. Maybe some of them are thicker. I don't know. But okay, but I think the issue is not so much the thickness. The issue is the pliability. The reason why they're easier to eat is because, what are they like similar to us? They're a lot like laffa. Is that the right mushel? Right? They're like laffa, right? Everybody here is eating laffa. So laffa is thick enough that if you put all that junk that they put into it, which we shouldn't be eating anyway, it holds, right? It doesn't fall apart instantly, right? Because then you wouldn't have anything to keep the stuff in it. It's not as thick as the falafel stuff. It's not as thick as pita bread. So I would say it's probably, I don't know, compared to a pita bread, if you take a pita bread and slice it in two, it's still half of a bottom of a pita bread, look to me. I'm just guessing. Basically. I would need more information to know exactly how thick it is. But the chiddush here is the pliability, and I assume unless somebody tells me differently, pliability is a function of the number of the heat. How long was it in the oven? The same as our ovens? Looks to be
much longer.
It has to be much
It
longer.
looks much longer.
So then the heat
Not
must
there.
be. 1 second before we get there, if you want to if it's much longer, why doesn't it burn to a crisp? Teretz is what? The heat is 600 instead of 1200? That's the pshat? They can regulate it to that effect. You can regulate an oven. You can regulate a wood oven so finely. No, I mean a gas oven you can, but you regulate a wood oven that finely. A lot of tzarechiyah, not tzarechiyah, a lot of tzarnidiyas we have here. Chas v'shalom. I mean, they look to be very chashuv b'nei Torah. Look at this way they look. But it looks to me some things we just don't understand. But I want to thank Yudin HPesach as always for being on the spot and coming up with this stuff here. Okay, so
Also they seem to be baking very few matzahs.
How big is the Sephardi population in Hendon? I could find out from London. Now I assume London's not a small kahila. Has probably I don't know how many from Jews it has, 50,000 a face. I don't know.
When they started baking too, they could start earlier than we do.
I don't know. These are old Tzarchians. I can find out from I could find out from my son-in-law is going home for London for Yantif, how many Sephardim there are in northern London. But it's a tiny operation, and it's probably the only one. And we have, how many matzah bakeries do we have in the Northeast here in New York?
Many.
On the Garden Parkway, what they call now the Garden State Parkway, the thing from Monsey down to Lakewood, we probably have. And go further up to Monroe, we probably have 15 bakeries, probably. They were baking for themselves. No, it's not true. They were selling them. They were putting those bags to sell, my friend. When you say for themselves, for the Sephardi community, obviously for the. Okay, let's learn a little some of the Makar stuff.
Excuse me, I have a question this morning. It wasn't clear to me. We can't.
No, I'm just putting it. So while we're talking, could you put on the Makar if you were not able to finish this morning, either HPesach or Mordechai? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Rabbi Gottesman.
Yes.
I'm friendly with Rav Usher Weiss's point person in England. His name is Elisha Khan. He's the Henry Orlinsky of Europe. Actually, when Rav Usher goes to Europe, he goes to him. So I'm friendly with him, and he actually he's a doctor. He invited me. I'm part of a 204 WhatsApp discussion group, medical halacha, of all the Sephardi, Chachamim, Dayanim, and it's very interesting to see their halachas. So actually what I did is I posted this video, and I asked people to PM me, to text me, and to explain to me what's the difference between our matzahs and the Sephardi matzahs. So it's out there. So as soon as I get information, right now it's probably after midnight in London. So
okay, fine. I mean, I don't know if that's the exact way I would phrase it, because they're going to write back to you, ours is softer. We know that. What I want to know is the details of what produces that softness, what degrees there. The Lisha process looks to be the same as ours, right? That's what it looks like. The proportion of the dough to the water looked to be more or less the same as ours. While it was on the table, I thought you were showing the wrong video, because it looked to me like a Ashkenazi matzah. So the actual difference looks to be when it gets into the oven. Am I wrong about that?
It's a fundamentally different oven.
Right. I'm saying when it gets to the oven, that's when the differences take over. So that's what I'd like you to focus on, basically, not just what's the difference. That's too broad a question. what temperature is your oven run at? And how exactly, what's the thickness of your matzah, A, and what's the thickness in proportion to a normative Ashkenazi matzah, not the thickest, not the thinnest. C, if, we're assuming that your oven is run at a different temperature, how long do you keep the matzahs in the oven? It looked to be longer than hour 8 to 10 seconds, because the guy was sort of like meandering along there, right? I mean, it wasn't any terrible rush to get the stuff out of the oven. So I don't know. These are the questions that I would try to WhatsApp him back and try to narrow the questions. Maybe I can think of any other questions to ask. Then please let Pesach know. Okay, put up these marmakaimis because let's learn.
Excuse me, I have a question left over from this morning.
Yes.
We want Ashkenazim cannot use these Sephardi matzahs for matzahs mitzvah, correct?
Ashkenazi cannot use Sephardi matzah for matzah mitzvah. That's generally correct unless it's b'diavad.
Right.
You heard
The
it.
normal case. But during the week, during Chol HaMoed, we'd have no reason not to eat them with a good hechsher, correct?
So the answer to that is, it depends.
No
I
different
mean,
than
if it has a good hechsher, it should not be worse than b'tzeika shel nachrim,
Yeah.
right? Right, should not be worse than b'tzeika shel nachrim, as long as they're not chametz, they're not kidneys. We're not doing that. They're chametz, they're matzah, which is not consistent with the Ramaz noyegin ba'ashkenaz lechol rikikin, because we're worried about the chametz. But once they've been baked and they're under a hechsher, so l'chayr they're not chametz. See, the problem is not the timing, as you heard in the beer of the Ramah, and as you saw, and if we can get this marble comes up, we'll see it again. We're worried that the fire does not penetrate into the. Now, having seen the oven there, now you understand why. Why? What am I being meisif now? What is our avana increase now that having seen this video on this problem? Because the fire is much less hot. So now you understand. In order to produce soft matzahs, now there was one piece missing in the link of logic. In order to produce softer matzahs, you have to use less fire. Yes, that's true. I noticed that too. In order to make less fire, now you're back to the problem, and maybe the fire will not penetrate all the way through the dough. And if it doesn't penetrate all the way through the dough, then you have a place which was not therefore properly. So,
but the fact that they make the hole so that the heat does touch
I'm wondering about the hole
and flipping it over allows for more even baking.
It just has to be a lower temperature.
Hold on. They make the holes. So do we make the holes. What's the difference?
The red looked a little bit different to me. I don't know. The machine that makes the hole look different. I don't know. It doesn't look the same.
Why? Maybe it takes into account the different thickness of the dough, right?
Right. Those look like bigger. They look like longer teeth.
Right.
Okay, that's the answer. That's perfectly normal, perfectly understandable. They're longer teeth because they have to penetrate into a thicker dough. You're all saying good, as we say in yeshiva. This looks good. It makes sense. What happened to these marmakaimis here at Pesach?
Again, what is the difference between the Erev Pesach, the Pesach night matzahs and the whole Pesach matzahs, except Lishma?
What's the difference? So there's no. Well, first of all, except Lishma is a big difference. Number one.
No. But you mentioned that we shouldn't eat the Sephardi matzah for the Seder, but we could eat them.
I didn't say that. Israel said that. I didn't dispute it. I didn't dispute it because I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave because it's a diavad. You heard it because we have to be like the Ramah. And in the chat there this morning, there was somebody who waited. Oh, I wish I could eat Sephardi matzah. So do I, but I can't because I have a Ramah that governs my actions.
That's the whole Pesach.
That's the whole Pesach. So when I said b'diavad, by definition, you want to limit it to b'diavad. So you limited the evet to I'm not going to tell you that that's a different question, which I think Rabbi Khan, who is chatting away here, asked Rabbi Zucker on Thursday, can you be Mekayim the Goyin with Matzah Shira? So now I had the same kasha. Can you be Mekayim the Goyin? Can an Ashkenazi be Mekayim the Goyin with Sephardi matzahs? Right? Yes. I mean, he wiggled around here. He didn't answer this question because it's a complicated question. I don't know. I would have to learn, as I said this morning, have to learn Matzah Shira from scratch to be able to answer that question. But it strikes me that it depends. Depends what the going to kash the Yisait is. The going to Yisait is not to not eat chametz taka, and therefore the only thing we can really eat is matzah. And by eating the matzah, by not eating chametz. I remember hearing a shir by who was it? Not Raveli Yegad, one of the young superstar Rosh Hashivas, and he parsed it that way. What is the pshat that was in my Pesach rabbinate days? So I went to hear him in Rabbi Zupnik Shul, my friend Rabbi Nachum Zupnik, and he said, it depends what the Pshat Negoyin is. In the Pshat Negoyin, it is an active mitzvah to eat, but you're Makayim only you're not Makayim obviously, or no. The Pshat is you're not supposed to eat chametz. And there's two ways of not eating chametz. So by eating it, you're not eating chametz. So I guess if it's the whole point of not eating chametz, then you get credited for Shivas Yom Matzah Techelim. By the not eating chametz, by the eating something that's not chametz, you'll say, okay, so why can't I eat chocolate? That's not chametz too. No, you have to be eating matzah that's not chametz. Okay, that was his lumdus in one paragraph or less. So if that's the case, then l'chayra, you're eating matzah as far as yaitza. Matzah, it's not chametz and yaitza. You have to eat matzah, just as it's not matzah shel ba'erev teichel matzah is. Story. Then you have to eat Ashkenazi matzahs. Okay. Anyway, this is the Chasam Sofer, right? A very stirring Chasam Sofer. Whenever the Chasam Sofer wrote something, he always had hovering over himself. I've said this to you before. This is not any big chiddush. He had hovering over himself the specter of Mr. Mendelssohn and company, and it was very wary about new things, right? Chadash Asam and Atayra. So here, it wasn't a new thing because they had a famine. It was an old thing, unfortunately. So they had to go and make stuff out of ribe matzahs. I was happy to hear that. Not only did I not know exactly where ribe matzahs comes from, the Rav himself did not know either. Even though I think it's pashut, right? Mechel doesn't come from riben, right? Isn't a ribe isn't a thinger, right? Isn't that a riber? A guy riben? Isn't that what it means? No? Who are my Yiddish speakers here? Who's a good Yiddish speaker? Mordechai, are you on? Doesn't ribe mean to rub?
A rib eisen, it's a grater.
A grater, yeah. So so it's a grater. A grater. We use graters for why would a thicker one be called a ribe matzis? I don't know. I don't know. But so
when Rav Rice read this, he also couldn't really explain what the ribe.
I said I was happy to hear that I wasn't the only one who didn't know what it means. Right. So the Amina Moritz, you just didn't know the connection. So anyway, but you see, the Chasam Sofer is so worried about doing anything new and whatever. So he sets up this getter here. You shouldn't chas v'shalom make a mistake. Okay, let's go weiter. You gotta give me the top of this so I can see what we're looking at. What is this? Pesach. The scroll to the heading so we can see what we're looking at. Knesset Gedolah. Okay. Knesset Gedolah was one of the great Gedolei Achronim in Kushta, if I remember correctly. So scroll down. Let's see what he says here. No, that they shouldn't touch each other. Go. Let's see where he talks about the thickness. Here we go. Taf Samach Aleph. Scroll down. Okay. Here he says that the minhag is started with a lulav. I don't know which came first, the fire for the burning of the chametz for a lulav, or the burning of the matzah for a lulav, or maybe the same aside. Given the side of the mitzvah achas, you have mitzvah acheres, okay? This next Knesset Agdala, HPesach, I want you to keep because this is going to be used tomorrow. So we only have the first part of it. So I probably have it in my Makayim, we'll have to send you and Mordechai later. This is the famous story with the lady. I'll give you a preview since it's here already. Okay, it's only had the first paragraph anyway. This lady single-handedly changed the course of Jewish history. One uninformed lady. You scroll down here on the left side. No. That's Knesset Gdaila. You're looking at the Shulchan Aruch. You can see. I need analyze the Savgunim Matzah Zafuya. We make Knedlach. Marsh Dam. Omar Ma'asef. Shamati b'meyel dusi. I remember when I was a young man. Shapam achas eshes chavrais b'tagnegas dobim b'shem b'machvas. V'aminik shetagn dagam tachnais b'kemach shleib b'kumam. You got to keep something from having the fish stick to the pot, which is something that I never figured out how to do. So we use oil, whatever. Bekitzer, they used flour. L'fishal pesach and echel askein. Lach isha neskeres matzah fuya. She took a matzah and she made matzah meal out of it. Tachanaysa dashadak heitev and nasus kemach. V'tiach basadagim. Very nice, no problem. The lady next door came in. She was not a big Talmud Chacham or Eishes Chaver. She was the first one was Eishes Chaver. V'rasa l'yisha and his karish Eishes Metechas Adagim Beisei Kemach. V'chashav she Kemach Mamish. She didn't know. She didn't understand it was matzah milk. She thought it was flour. V'machar v'lo dagim v'tagim v'tachais b'kemach mamish. Beina bein nechlas baila. And the Knesset goes on to say that this caused a huge problem. And ever since then, the Rabbanim in the Kushta, I guess it was, made a Gzeira which spread out against later, theoretically, and many twists of the Klal Yisrael not to use Kemach, even if it's ne'efa, for matzah, even not to use matzah meal, because it is one dumb lady. Wow, what a historical, that fried fish, was one of the most important fried fishes in Jewish history, halachic history. Okay, we don't have the end of it here, but we'll get to it when we learn tomorrow. As I said, I have no choice but to start this Bruck story tomorrow because it's a lot of material here. We'll never be able to finish it on Thursday morning. Let's go further. This is the Shulchan Aruch Harav. Innocent matzav tefach shia ava ga kalki yesh lakasham liyishlacham ha'ev teichel v'tchav teich b'shas v'yasol pachn tefach afilu mashu muter las chatchila meikar hadin afi shechay matan shal b'teich ha'ev k'shem b'tefach chav teich v'teles matzv v'kik dak k'shem malach it's called kach k'may avais yishadayin ein chus tanav avras mitzvah matzav avis tefach yisum muteres b'chila. Let's scroll down. Pesach. Well, yes, I'm a teich of nefa yafa. Latest chamtav applicating types like chaysel and matzahs mitzvah. There you go. Okay. Do you ask me where I got it from? This is where I got it from. Yosef.
Yeah.
Now he's not talking about the in all fairness, the Shulchan Aruch Harav is talking about Yosef mitefach, right? Afal became. I think is somebody read it with me. Mechel, you're reading it the same way I am. That this last shtickle here, if over vasa matzahs avis tefacha yaisim b'talos b'achila, it's mutter if you check it. Checking away takes the chimutz away. So what else could you be worried about now? But maybe it's not matzah. Why shouldn't it be matzah? What's the pshat in this, Rabbi Seitaka? Why can't you use this? It's a good kasha. Manushach, if it's not chametz, you don't eat chametz. So if it's not chametz, what else could it be? You get a kasha? We're back to where we started. Excellent kasha, Rabbi said. Why can't we use it for matzah mitzvah? Other than Shlomo, what should be the difference? So we're right back to Rabbi Snyder's kasha. A pshat, Rabbi said. Somebody tell me a pshat. Micho, look me a pshat. Why not? Why can't I use it for the Seder? It's not Mahuder.
The Ramah.
What do you mean the Ramah? The Ramah says supposed to make Rikikim because we're worried about it being chametz. So now you went, you did it, more than tafach. You looked at your budget, it's not chametz. Why can't you use for the?
How can you tell looking at it if it's chametz or not? I don't understand that.
What do you mean? How can you look? What do I understand? Why not? You take a. Why can't you look?
How can you tell?
What? No, that's not true.
No.
Cracks is in the baking process.
According to the Rosh, you stop and it instantaneously becomes chametz. It looks the same before and after. How can you tell after it's baked if it's chametz or not? I don't understand.
What do you mean? If it's soft, if there's a part of softness, if there's some kemach there which is not baked, I don't understand the kasha.
Oh, okay. If you find something, if you find some wheat in it, all right, okay, flour, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's soft, it's like naklat need. You need to check. Okay,
Gottesman?
Yes, take off
So
that great thing there. Yes, Pesach.
I asked this to the question that I asked for the Rabbanan in England. And I said here, what produces the softness of the matzah, the timing, the nature of the oven? So this Rabbi Yonatan Halevi answered me, we bake in our kehillah. It's a combination of all the above. Essentially, a soft matzah will turn into an Ashkenazi.
Hold on, first of all, I got it 5 and 9 is 14. It's 2 in the morning. Okay, the Rav is up at 2 in the morning. Good to know.
Essentially, he says essentially a soft matzah will turn into an Ashkenazi one if left in an oven too long or left out too dry. He said that Rabbi Yitzchak Berdugo wrote an interesting article about it in the Chabura's latest book on Pesach. And the Chabura is actually, they have a shiur like we have in London. They have a Chabura of this. So I'll ask them for
okay, let's not overdo this. The bottom line is, did he tell you how hot the oven is? Yes or no?
No, he didn't.
Okay, write it back. Thank you. We understand that the thickness is a function of the heat. Tell us, we know that our ovens are baked. We know how hot our ovens are, 1,200 degrees. Some claim it's as high as 14 to 15. We know how long, write these 3 variables down. We know how long Ashkenazi matzahs are kept in the oven, anywhere between 8 and 12 seconds. And we know what thickness is produced. I don't know how to be magda that. We know Baruch, I know it by visual inspection of my eye. I couldn't tell in this video how much thicker than a shatza matzah is a Sephardi matzah. Okay? Shatza matzah is a middle of the road matzah. Would you say that, Mordechai? Correct? It's thicker than the charedim, but it's not as thick as some of the other matzahs around. Am I right about that?
Right. Yes.
Okay, so we all know how much a shatza matzah is. How much thicker is this Sephardi matzah? Twice as thick, 1.5 times as thick, 20% thick. Give us an idea. He already answered most of the question, which is that if you keep it in the oven longer, it's going to get thicker. Okay, thinner. We understand that. Harder. But does it have more wheat? Does it have more dough in it? I assume it has to have more dough in it, because how could you make matzah not thicker with the heat of the oven? Keep it there longer, burns it down. It evaporates like water. What's the pshat in that? Anybody know how this? Huh?
The heat sets it. It has to be that the temperature is lower, and the matzah going in is thicker. Those 2 things have to. There's no give there.
Right. I mean, the flour doesn't evaporate, right, in the heat of an oven. Correct. Well, certainly not that shortly. Not. I don't know. Maybe again, I'd like to know how long they are in the oven. So that's what I want to know. Those are the only 3 variables possible: heat, length, and amount of flour going in. I don't know if I'll be able to calculate the amount of flour going in because I don't know what the amount of flour in our matzah is, but he knows more about Ashkenazi matzahs than I know about Sephardi matzahs for one simple reason. What's the reason for that?
Lives in an Ashkenazi world.
No, because at the end of the day, he must produce some Ashkenazi matzahs that go wrong. You understand? I'll bet you, at the end of the day, those matzahs that stay in the oven too long become Ashkenazi matzahs, right?
No. They burn. They just char. They don't thin down because of the heat.
Why can't I take them out before they char? The guy standing there with his rye buzz and shovel there, whatever we call that. What do you call that again?
A peel.
The what?
Appeal, P-E-E-L.
Not in Yiddish.
Well,
That's
Yiddish,
the
I
elephant.
can help you.
I forgot. I already discovered there's 2 or 3 different words for every single one of these things in Yiddish. I guess depending on which part of the European continent you came from. Okay, that's
His
the
matzahs start out thicker than ours.
what?
His matzahs start out thicker than ours and end up thicker than ours.
Yeah,
We understand that, Strong Moshe. We got
But
it.
if he leaves them in the oven too long, it's not going to get thinner. He's not
He'll
going to be
get
able to
burned.
sell them
He'll get charred.
matzahs.
it'll be a thick charred matzah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're disagreeing with my statement that I heard him say in that video that if they leave it, I thought I heard him say if they leave it in, it becomes Ashkenazi matzah. No,
I don't care if they said it. I'm not buying those matzahs.
They might become more solid, though.
they
They
might
might not
become
be
more,
so-
okay. I guess but yeah, they're going to become more solid. That's what he said. That's what I mean. They
But
become
not thinner, not
They
thinner,
don't get thinner.
okay. They're not thinner, more solid, but not thinner.
Get harder.
harder. Yeah.
Harder, more solid, harder. I'm not talking about the fact that the oven and the table was suspiciously close to each other, because between you and me, even in our ovens, in our bakeries, they're right next to each other just to have this Chazara Shiur. Chazara Shiur is a very nice halachic concept, but I don't see what it does to keep the heat out. I mamish don't. Now, it could be that there's more space between the opening of the door and the oven. And the Shatza Matzah Bakery, again, I only keep on saying this because that's the matzah bakery that I'm most familiar with. Between the opening of the door to the oven is what, Mordechai, 6 feet, not more. Right? Right? And
No,
am I right?
maybe.
Maybe even less, you're saying, right? Maybe even less. Okay, so how do they prevent the heat from getting out? And okay, maybe they control it by having a small opening to the oven. I'm not sure. I mean, I never understood how the guy could stand there so close of a 1200 degree heat and not get singed if he gets up much close to the thing. I don't know. Basically. Okay.
Heat
Anyway.
dissipates very fast, distance-wise.
If it's not enclosed in that thing, it dissipates
Right.
very fast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how do our steam heats work? How does my steam radiator work? I live in an old apartment.
It heats the air right next to the radiator, right? And that heats the air next to that a little bit and a little bit further.
Yeah, okay, but you're saying it dissipates. I
When
hear.
you walk into your house and it's cold, it takes an hour for the house to heat up.
Okay, Rabbi say, but that's the stinking of them, or
Has to do with
we got it.
convection currents and density.
And that sounded so erudite that even if it's not true, I accept it and I thank you for it. Okay.
One more observation. It seems that they were working like a tent with plastic on the outside and had holes in it, which I don't think would be acceptable to Ashkenazim to let the light and the air in.
This was outside.
It looked like they were wrapped in like plastic sheeting for the walls of whatever facility they were in. That's what it appeared to me. It had holes in it.
It looked like a
It didn't appear
tent.
to me outside. I thought that was just a fun run.
Okay. Weiter. We're running out of time here, so just take me down one more Maramakim. This is the Ritva. We saw this. Okay, keep on going the other way. It's the Ritva. So in the morning, Yaakov we saw. Keep on going.
This is the second Chok Yaakov.
What's this? This is about Siurim on it. I don't know. I don't know what else we're looking at here. Oh, the second part of it. Right last Mashur Kik Tunnel. We saw this. This is the Iron Base Hill. This we saw. This is the Kafachayim. What steht on Kafachayim? Here we go. Einer Kikamar Lahachmetz. Iron Base Hill. Mordechai, could you give me the Hill is a Kadmon because he was for El Yerabba. So El Yerabba was in the. Yeah, I want to know. Yeah, I want to know what the date on the Base Hill was. But have you Yaakov? I think maybe stupid, but I think maybe in the Yishurim we have a biography of him too. Could be so many, I don't know anymore. Can't remember anymore. All of them. Pesach, could you get rid of this annoying box here? Thank you. Maybe that's for the matzah meal. Kein Kasabesh Lavram, they state in the Chubachuacha. The Achav Minig Kak Ashkenazim Poi Ira Kodesh Yerushalayim. Lases Matzes
Mitzvah.
Became B'Matzes Eisel Techer Kikin Mamish. Commercial cost of Maharam Zal. Maharam is the Ramah. Okay, so not just he changes it from the matzah meal to everything. Everything is made out of rakikim. Okay, yes, that's in the foreign translation. God came out to mitzvah rakikim mam. Nazlis yes, dakli avmarizim b'shubach. Sharmetz kol alma noigen atal asais rakikim dakin. From the minute atal lefes akol kind of pesach. The more you rakikim dakin kashal echad. Why? I don't understand why. Why is it harder to eat a Sephardi matzah that has gotten hard than a Ashkenazi matzah which starts hard? Different kind of hard. What's the shot? Spoiled, I understand, but hard. What's the difference? What's the problem? What happens if you make it 2 weeks before Pesach? Yes, I doubt these guys were baking things day before Yom Tov, right? It's a commercial bakery. You can't bake it no matter how small it is, they want to bake it before Yom Tov. What happens to it? It gets hard. So what's the difference between what we have hard and they have hard? Not fresh, I mean.
Theirs is a lot thicker.
For what? I mean,
How
hard,
hard we
thicker.
eat?
You're saying it's thicker, harder, is
Nature,
harder
look,
than
you can
thinner, thick.
You can eat a 3-week-old cracker. You can't eat a 3-week-old slice of bread. It's just the nature of the substance is different.
I'm thinking about that. I guess that's true. You know, you burn a piece of toast. You leave it in the toaster too long or whatever in the thingy, toaster oven, and it comes out totally hard. You can only eat it like a cracker, but because it's thicker, it's much harder to eat. That's what you're saying. Okay, I accept that. Accept that.
Yeah, we're talking about the tefach that comes glibly off your tongue, but really we're talking about making a match like a brick. I mean, that's like inconceivable. A matzah brick.
I got it. Okay, one more Pesach. Keep on going. Is that it? This we saw. The Shabur we saw. This we saw. No. Rav Kisliyod Leosach was National Matzah Abu. What? This is the Kaf Chaim, no? Rav Kisliyod.
Yes, Kaf Chaim.
Near Pashat Leosach was National Matzah Abu who dikkel mechlach hamatz shlan shem dakas aboid. Mashkum kikin lach is a klaus we are nichot hamatz plus yaf and nein right shekal mem lechot. Kasser Khanlin is a matzah nefucha. So we don't have nefucha in our very thin matzahs. Only the Sephardim have problems with nefucha. Okay, go down.
Akana Kaf Aleph.
Akana Kaf Aleph. Excellent, Rabbi Sai. Thank you very much. I'm going to have Myrav. It was a pleasure to have you all on tonight. 6 million Ukrainians. What do you say to that? Okay. I'll see you all tomorrow morning, 11. And as I said, the current plan is to start with going through the Mekayos of Shruya because it's going to take us a while to get through this complicated sugya. Everybody have a good night. Thank you very much to everybody. Tomorrow you let us know when the base was nifted. We should have an idea.
1690.
Oh, shkayach. Thank you very much. Have a good night.